There's a house on Willow Lane that's been quiet for decades, paint peeling off the white fence, wind chimes that haven't sung in years. But behind those dusty windows lived a love story the world never knew. Until now. Eleanore lived alone for most of her life, not because she didn't have anyone, but because the one she truly loved never came home. She wasn't bitter. No, she smiled more than most. Her neighbors would say she had a smile that carried the warmth of 1,000 suns, the kind of smile that softened hearts, even on cold days. Each morning she sat by the window with a cup of tea in her hand, always in the same old blue mug. She'd watch the bird flutter near the feeder and children chase each other down the sidewalk. Seasons passed like shadows in that window frame. Eleanor never missed a Sunday letter. Every week, rain or shine, she wrote to James. "My dearest James," each letter began. The postman never picked them up. She never intended to send them. They stayed in a small wooden box under her bed. Hundreds of them, all sealed, all addressed, all unopened. James was a soldier, young and brave. He was 22 when he went off to fight in the war. They had promised each other they'd grow old together, start a family, build a little life. He kissed her goodbye on the train platform, a small daisy in her hand. "I'll be back," he said. "You'll see." But months later, a telegram arrived. Missing in action? It felt like time stopped in that moment. The daisy, once pressed in her favorite book, fell from the pages. But Eleanor didn't believe the message. Not truly. Her heart told her otherwise. She waited. She waited through the silence, through the noise of a changing world, through birthdays, holidays, black and white televisions becoming color, neighbors coming and going. Every day she lived as if he might walk through the door. Eleanor never remarried. People tried to set her up at church socials, family dinners, community events. She was lovely, kind, and full of grace, but she always smiled and said, "My heart is already full." Some thought it was foolish, waiting decades for someone who might never come back. But those who knew her best understood. She wasn't waiting for James to return to her doorstep. She was waiting to feel whole again. Years turned into decades. The world moved on, but Eleanor lived quietly in that little house with the creaky floors and flowered curtains. Her garden bloomed brighter than anyone else's on the block. Tulips in spring, daisies in summer, mums in the fall, all planted with care, all planted for him. She kept his photo on the mantel, James in uniform smiling like he had the world ahead of him. On their anniversary, she'd light a single candle and whisper, "Happy anniversary, my love." The room would stay silent, but in her heart she'd hear him. Sometimes children passing by would wave. She always waved back. To them, she was the sweet old lady with the peppermint jar and the kind eyes. They didn't know about the letters, about the little wooden box under her bed, or the one tucked away at the back of the closet, wrapped in a faded red ribbon. She never opened that one, never told anyone about it. It was the last letter James had sent, the one that came back to her unread, marked "Return to Sender." She couldn't bear to read it, not yet, maybe not ever. What if it said goodbye? So she kept it sealed. As long as it stayed closed, there was still hope inside. Time softened the edges of her memories, but never erased them. And through it all, Eleanor remained steady, gentle, unshakable, and always in love. As the years wore on, Eleanor's hair turned silver. Her hands, once nimble from stitching and gardening, began to tremble slightly. But she still held her teacup steady every morning as she watched the world drift by. Neighbors came and went. The tree out front, the one she and James planted as teenagers, grew tall and strong, its branches now shading the entire porch. Sometimes she would sit there in the late afternoons, eyes closed, imagining the creak of his boots on the steps, the sound of his voice calling, "Ellie, I'm home." The quiet ache in her chest never really left, but it dulled into something gentle, like the ache of a song you've loved so long you've memorized every note of sadness. One winter, a snowstorm swept through town, the kind that painted every rooftop white and hushed the streets. Eleanor was found on her porch wrapped in 2 blankets, her old wool scarf around her neck, humming a lullaby. The neighbors gently helped her inside, made her tea, and stayed with her until the storm passed. She thanked them, smiling, and said, "I was just listening for the wind. Sometimes it sounds like his voice." Her days grew quieter. The garden sat untouched. The teacup stayed on its shelf. And one evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Eleanor lay down in her bed, pulled the quilt over her shoulders, and whispered something only she could hear. That night she passed in her sleep. No pain, no fear, just peace. They found her the next morning, the same soft smile on her face, the one she wore for nearly 80 years. The townspeople mourned. They left flowers by her porch, daisies mostly. Some said they saw her silhouette at the window the night after. Maybe it was the light playing tricks, or maybe it was something else. When her niece came to help clean the house, she discovered the box of letters under Eleanor's bed, all addressed to James, all beginning with, "My dearest James." She opened one, then another, then sat on the floor reading until the sun dipped behind the clouds. As the niece gently sorted through Eleanor's things, she uncovered keepsakes from another era. James's comb, his dog tags, an old handkerchief with his initials stitched in fading thread. But the most mysterious item was the small velvet box tucked away behind a stack of old quilts. It was wrapped in a faded red ribbon, the knot still perfectly tied, untouched for decades. Inside was a locket, gold, heart-shaped. Inside the locket, a tiny photo of James in uniform on one side, and Eleanor's high school portrait on the other. And beneath it, folded neatly, was the one letter Eleanor had never read, the one that came back to her, marked "Return to Sender." Her niece hesitated, then slowly unfolded it. The ink was old but still clear, the handwriting strong and deliberate. It read, "My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, then fate has played a cruel joke on us. I don't know if this letter will ever reach you, but I must write it all the same. They've asked us to move further into enemy territory tomorrow. I feel something, like a weight, pressing on my chest. Maybe it's fear, or maybe it's regret, not for going. I'd do it again, Ellie. I'd go 1,000 times over to protect what we dreamed of, but I regret not having more time with you. If I don't return, know this. You are the best part of me. You are my home. You are my forever. And if God wills it, I'll find my way back to you, whether in this life or the next. I love you with every breath I've ever taken. Forever yours, James." Tears welled in her niece's eyes as she gently refolded the letter. It had sat unread for more than 70 years. Maybe Eleanor had known. Maybe her heart had told her everything she needed, without ever opening it. The day after Eleanor passed, the town gathered to say their goodbyes. Neighbors, old friends, even strangers whose lives had been touched by her quiet kindness. They came with flowers, with memories, with tears that fell softly like raindrops. The church bell rang once and then again, and for a brief moment the wind picked up, swirling the petals of daisies into the air, floating gently across the porch where Eleanor had sat so many mornings. Her niece placed the locket around her own neck, holding it close as if to feel the weight of Eleanor's love. The house on Willow Lane stood silent once more, but the love that lived inside it, the love that never faded, never abandoned its roots, remained. It lingered in the walls, in the garden that had known every season of her life, in the letters that had waited for someone who would never come. And perhaps that's the truth of love. It doesn't always end with the perfect reunion. Not every story has the chance to be completed, but it lives on, in memories, in hope, in the unspoken promises we carry with us. Eleanor's love for James did not end with her passing. It did not end with the unopened letters or with the unspoken words. It lived on in the quiet spaces of Willow Lane, where the wind still carried whispers of their love. Perhaps in some distant corner of the universe, Eleanor and James finally found each other. But until then, their love would continue in the hearts of those who knew their story, in the memory of a love that had lasted a lifetime and beyond. And maybe that's how love truly survives, not in moments or in time, but in the endless loop of remembrance. Forever yours.
Don't wait a moment. Please like and subscribe for more hilarious moments. Thank you for watching.